Hello, you are listening and or watching to What's for Tea, basically the podcast where two former support workers catch up over, well, it's meant to be a cup of tea, it's a water now. Basically catching up on life, universe, discussing this kind of adulting world that we live in and how we are not at all kind of experts, but we kind of find a path through. We occasionally kind of talk about kind of random subjects. We might sometimes talk about one particular topic of the day, and I'm very aware my voice is already dying. We might get to that as time goes on. That's a very good start. Lydia, how's your week been?
You didn't do my name's Lydia, my name's Andy.
Well, that's because I didn't put it in the script.
No, it's fine. Oh, gosh.
This is Lydia. My name's Andy.
There you go, for anyone that didn't know. What was the question? This is going to a great start.
And this is what happens when I begin. I was asking you how you were.
Oh, yeah. So last episode I was sick. I think you could hear it in my voice. I feel...
Oh, interesting that you're sick and last.
Yeah. I'm feeling dandy. I'm feeling great. I'm feeling like on top of the world. How are you feeling, Andy?
I could go back to bed, to be perfectly honest.
Andy is now sick.
I could... I am physically incredibly tired. Mentally, I'm almost okay. Which is basically...
Were you mentally okay to fall over
that? But that's mostly the reason why I'm not ill. I'm just...
You're recovering.
Forever.
Yeah, you're recovering from being ill. Yeah. I do feel like this podcast is now becoming like who's going to be ill on the next pod? Like the next episode.
And who's going to be the unhinged one?
Yeah. I feel like I'm going to be the unhinged one today, just to kind of keep that energy.
No. It's my turn to be unhinged because I don't have a clue what is going on.
Yeah, so Andy's just going to follow my lead today. But you are feeling better though, aren't you, Andy? Because we were worried about you. And when I say we, it was just me. I want to say we
better.
Like more people.
I think better is a kind of... Yeah, it's a thing. It's a...
You're not
as bad as I once was.
Okay, great. That's all I need to say. Perfect. So one thing that I kind of like hijacked our plan for today.
At the very last moment.
At the very last minute, which, Andy's not feeling on top of his game, so this is throwing him off. And
it was very much kind of things changed at the last minute, towards the end of last week.
Yeah.
I, thankfully, our PR team is amazing.
They are amazing. Shout out to the PR team, Resource and Comms. You're amazing.
Which feels very self-serving, really.
Andy is part of that team, but we're not including you in this.
Sometimes not included in it. Something. But basically, last weekend it was International Women's Day.
It was International Women's Day on the 8th of March.
Whatever the Saturday was.
Yeah, 8th of March.
Yes, so the Saturday just gone.
Yes.
Why are we talking about it? It's like Saturday just gone. It's just gone.
Yeah. So our wonderful Andy said PR team put together some pieces to go out on International Women's Day to mark the occasion, to help raise awareness, also to be like, yes, we are aware it's International Women's Day, and the piece is absolutely beautiful in my opinion. I think it's just well written, and I think it's just really poignant. It just picks up all the good kind of key pieces. So anyone listening or watching, I would recommend you to go check out our Instagram or our website for that post.
Yeah, it's on the news page.
News page, yeah. So basically, International Women's Day. Why do we celebrate International Women's Day? And the reason we celebrate International Women's Day is because there is a lot of disparity between men and women in terms of, equal rights and things like that. So obviously, it's nowhere near what it used to be when we had to have the suffragette movement, fighting for women's rights. However, there is still very much a unfairness and disparity between violence in terms of gendered categories. So violence against women, statistically, there's far more violence against women than there is men. Women tend to be, and women and girls tend to be more victims of kind of harassment, sexual harassment, any kind of sexual crimes, and all of that kind of violence.
Yeah.
So International Women's Day, this year was to talk about kind of our voices and to try and, speak up and educate, how we can change things and move things forwards. And I just thought it was a really important thing to put out there on the podcast for listeners, just to remind people of why we have International Women's Day and the real issue that we've got out in the world at the moment with violence against women and girls.
What I don't think I appreciated until the weekend just gone was that even when the suffragette movement happened and women had the vote, there are still a lot of rules around that. Something like you had to be 30 plus and married, or I should have paid more attention and probably showing my own lack of education.
It was still
But the fact that I was like, actually, there's still we kind of celebrate it happening rightfully, but even at that point,
there was still restrictions.
There's still a ton of restrictions. And I was like, wait, what?
Yeah. So, women were classed as second-class citizens in terms of men were the rulers, they were the head of the house, women were property to be owned. When you were married, you were classed as, your husband owning you. And the suffragettes, were like, we want the right to vote and a say. And, that kind of sparked this movement into kind of more equal rights that we see in women in terms of pay, in some jobs, voting and various things. But, there's still, some jobs still don't have equal pay for women and men, even if it's somewhat the same job and the same qualification. There'll be slight differences in kind of benefits and pay still in certain organisations. My voice is going now. And also, in terms of how crimes are dealt with when it comes to women that are victims of violence or anything like that, it's just not treated the same as men. A lot of the time the blame is put on the woman victim, where that doesn't seem to happen in men cases. So International Women's Day is about kind of uplifting female voices to try and educate and to try and push forward more kind of equality, but also to try and raise awareness, especially around violence against women and girls, to try and nip it in the bud. And I just thought it was important to share.
Fantastic. Thank you for sharing.
No worries.
Now, unbeknownst to a lot of people, and unbeknownst to what it often appears, there is generally a plan behind this podcast.
Yeah, it may not look it, because sometimes it does come across unhinged and just chaotic, but there is a plan.
And that plan generally kind of looks at what we're kind of talking about week to week.
Yeah.
And sometimes you kind of pick up on threads from the week before, and we discuss it maybe a bit more that week, if any of that made sense.
Yeah, so like
not a weekly podcast.
There might, yeah. So like the last episode, we might have like used a specific word that could actually be a topic in itself,
like mindful.
Yes, love that segue. I don't know.
You.
So I feel like that was a great assist from me there.
Thank you. That was where I was aiming. Did get a little bit lost. So what do we mean by being mindful?
So yeah, mindfulness is something that I think more when I started at the YMCA 8 years ago now. Oh gosh.
Does that make you feel old?
It does make me feel old.
How distracted.
Mindfulness wasn't really like mentioned or a thing, and then as kind of the time's gone on, mindfulness is more we're more aware of it. It's more on social media. It's more mentioned by kind of medical professionals. So mindfulness is a way of being present and aware in the moment.
And so is mindfulness basically the action of being mindful?
Yes, yeah, so it's being kind of present and aware in the moment without judgment. So you can kind of acknowledge feelings and thoughts and process them.
Okay.
And sometimes we live in a society where it's so fast paced, like people are just moving on to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And sometimes we need that moment to just have some peace and mindfulness where we just need to slow everything down and just be present, because the fast-paced nature can sometimes lead to things like anxiety, stress, and sometimes our bodies aren't necessarily equipped of dealing with that much. So having those moments of mindfulness, of just being like, right, I'm going to be aware and present in the moment. What am I feeling? Why am I feeling this? Can be really helpful to restore the body and the mind. So that is what mindfulness is.
Okay.
Does that help? Because you were like, I'm not really sure what mindfulness was before the episode. Does that help?
That
So that's kind of,
it kind of does.
yeah.
I guess.
How do we get there?
Hear about mindfulness exercises, and is mindfulness exercises there to help us be mindful?
Yeah, exactly. So the mindful exercises are basically things that you can do to be more present and aware. So certain things that you can do is kind of like, it's like a breathing exercise where you just focus on your breathing. So it's like, there's different numbers, but it's basically like you breathe in, I think it's you breathe in for 6, hold for 4, breathe out for 7. The numbers differentiate between people, and all you're doing is focusing on the counting and the breathing, which just helps slow your heart rate, bring you kind of more focused to the moment. So afterwards you can think a bit more clearly and things like that. So that's an exercise. Another way you can count is there is like the 5-finger breathing. So basically, as you roll your finger up the thumb, I just feel like I'm working on a TV show. If you're watching, you can see me doing it. But as you put your finger towards the wrist and move up towards the top tip of your thumb, and then back down towards your finger.
Okay.
So you breathe up, you breathe in, and then you breathe out.
Right.
Breathe in, breathe out. Someone did say, well, I feel like I'm going to hyperventilate because they were doing it so quickly.
That is pretty much why.
You've got to go at a flow pace, and that one's sometimes a bit harder for people, which is I think why people prefer the counting methods.
Right. Okay.
Because it's a little bit like slower of counting rather than the finger. You might go a bit too quick and then end up hyperventilating. Another one is body scan meditation, which is my favourite one to do, which can really help.
What is this?
Which can really help if your mind is so busy that you can't go to sleep. So I do this quite a lot. I do suffer with episodes of insomnia throughout the year, and this sometimes does help. So basically, you lie down somewhere comfy. You can do it on the floor. You don't have to do it in the bed. And basically, you lie down, and it's just basically focusing on all parts from your head to your toes.
Yeah.
And noticing sensations, and obviously focusing on your breathing as well. So that's just kind of like, so you start with the tip of your head, so feeling your head on the pillow, moving down to the shoulders, if they're tense, relax them, down to your fingertips, sense what your fingertips are touching, and doing it all of that way can like just help scan, focus back into your body in the present moment.
Okay.
And it can be quite sleepy. You can do kind of a sitting meditation, which is just sitting comfortably in your chair, so focusing your feet firmly on the ground, and just breathing and just being present of what you can feel whilst you're sat there, and the feeling of the ground underneath your feet. So there's different types of things you can do. There's a lot of meditations in there, but there's other like mindfulness. So like when you're showering, being more mindful of what the water feels like, the temperature, the sensations, rather than just focusing on the task at hand, but being mindful and present of all the sensations and thoughts and feelings you've got whilst you're showering, for example.
So I guess immediate observation is that I guess they are exercises, they're kind of tricks to kind of help you be aware of what it is you're feeling at that moment of time, rather than I know that I'm very easy to think about the next thing that I'm doing.
We're all guilty of doing that, I think.
And so I guess they're kind of tricks to kind of help you just to slow your brain down.
100%. And I think, it's something that I talk about with my residents quite a lot, is actually about emotional regulation. It's something that I think, again, it's when I was growing up, didn't hear about emotional regulation, like didn't even know what that term was, and I don't think my parents did either. But it's about regulating your emotions and being aware of your emotions and allowing them to feel them. And mindfulness basically helps you with your regulation of emotions by doing exactly that, being aware of what you're feeling, allowing yourself to feel that. Why is it you're feeling that? And just taking 5 or 10 minutes out of your day to do that can be so helpful. I do it at work. If I've had a really stressful day, I've had a plan of the day, it's all gone out of the window because various different things are happening. And sometimes I just go, right, I just need 10 minutes. And I'm just sat there in my office with my eyes closed, focusing on my breathing. And it just really helps, ground me. And now a lot of people aren't a fan of mindfulness. They think it's, a bit of airy fairy, hippie.
Yeah. That was going to be my next question, I guess, is that this has obviously kind of come from somewhere over the last 10 years. What would you say to people who are like, this is not a good thing?
Yeah. So when I first had mindfulness, I was one of those people, I was working, with residents and, we'd call, crisis helplines or whatever it is that we were calling to get assistance. And they were like, why don't you try some mindfulness? And, I'd roll my eyes, of course, and didn't really think, it could benefit people in the moment. And then I experienced kind of some heightened level of anxiety, especially during COVID, I think with everyone else.
Yeah.
And, speaking to my doctor, they mentioned it and I was like, oh, for goodness sake. And actually, I looked into it and I actually gave it a go and I actually noticed the benefits for myself. Now, it's not for everyone. We're not saying mindfulness is going to cure everything.
No.
It definitely doesn't cure. It just helps relieve some of those symptoms and allow you that space to feel whatever it is you're feeling. It's not to replace, medication, therapies or anything like that. It's just a tool to help you in those moments where things get a bit too much.
I guess it's almost like the anti-mobile phone life hack.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is not to go too far down a different subject, but there's argument that there is a lot more kind of talk about mental health, more kind of anxiety and things like that, particularly amongst young people. And there is a suggestion that could be connected with use of mobile phones. And in that, and not because mobile phones are themselves a bad thing, but once upon a time where we used to have, not have mobile phones, there used to be kind of very much natural breaks in our day where we'd be left alone with our thoughts and our feelings.
100%.
And that could be something as simple as waiting for the train, on the bus, waiting for the next thing to happen. Now I don't know about you, but if I'm waiting for a train and if I don't have like my family there with me, I'm like just gonna take out my phone, scroll Facebook, Instagram, whatever.
Yeah.
It feels that kind of.
Oh yeah.
Whereas once upon a time, I'd be processing my day.
Exactly. We are always consuming something in our day, which doesn't give us the space to be with our thoughts, with our feelings.
And that's what mindfulness is. It's
exactly
kind of
exactly that
against that, and it's an exercise to kind of try and make us be aware of how we're feeling.
So I mentioned kind of the word meditation. So mindfulness and meditation. So there is methods of meditation and mindfulness, but they are slightly different. So mindfulness focuses on quality, so the quality of the time. Meditation, there's sometimes you have to be in a specific environment to do meditation.
Okay.
So if you see a lot of these like yoga retreats where they do meditation, that's a little bit different to mindfulness. But there is I guess some overlap. So they're not quite the same, but there is an overlap. But for me, I can't do meditation, where it's just like, empty your thoughts and we're going to play music, and you're just sat there with your eyes closed and there's music playing. I'm like, my mind's going everywhere. I'm like thinking I'm going out for tea. I'm like, how long's left? I can't sit just in silence on my own thoughts. So for me, guided meditation is really helpful for that. So it's a really softly spoken person who's like, we're going to breathe for 5 seconds, like that. And you basically just follow the instructions. So all you have to see, because you're focusing on the voice, it distracts you from everything else that's going, and it takes you into a space of peacefulness, restfulness, which might then give you the time then to allow you to do mindfulness or to process things. So there is benefits to these. So we've kind of talked a bit about some of the benefits. So it helps you become aware of your thoughts and feelings. We've talked that, I think, very much to death. It helps you stress less, so it helps monitor kind of stresses, or there's a lot of hormones that are going on with stress and anxiety. Helps balance out those hormones, so you end up feeling stress less. It helps you just be able to manage that so much better. It helps you to be more engaged. So doing that afterwards, you find that you can be more engaging with people around you, with the content. You can be a bit more focused. And basically, those are kind of the benefits of mindfulness. So it's not just to help you with heightened levels of anxiety, there is benefits after doing that as well, which is being more focused, more engaged, and more present.
One last observation before weird news. Can't help but think that our favourite app actually includes a lot of stuff about mindfulness.
It says mindfulness is in there.
Talk about Finch a couple of times recently.
I feel like bringing up Finch to see if we can get sponsored because we've talked about it so much.
Hey, Finch.
If you would, that'd be great. I love your game.
Remarkable, mindful bird.
Can I just say though, before you go into to Finch and the mindfulness, I am now on my 70-day streak on the app. I've now completed 100% of Finchy Forest, and I've now travelled to Hawaii. Guys, I'm now in Hawaii.
Which, if you don't have a Finch app, all of that's going to sound random.
Yeah.
But it's a good sign, and it suggests that Lydia is sticking to the goals that she is setting for herself. And a lot of the goals themselves are kind of either... They seem to be split into two halves. One is kind of very practical goals that she wants to kind of complete for herself. The other is, and what I kind of picked up from this morning, there's a lot of kind of mindful exercises, very kind of short mindful exercises, just to help you become more aware of yourself and your own feelings at that moment of time. So, Finch, hi.
Hi, Finch. We love you, Finch. Sounds like we're saying it to a person, isn't it? Just to clarify.
It's a bird.
It's a bird. It's a very cool bird.
Anyway, weird news. We need our jingle. Hi, Chris.
He's going away again.
If you want to do the jingle.
Yeah, I feel like it's on us. We've said this every time and we've let you guys down. I'm really sorry. We haven't got the jingle. Am I doing the top one?
Oh, please.
He's setting me up.
No.
So this is my weird news article from the Metro. The title is, "This is why an entire town plays a brutal 16-hour football game on Shrove Tuesday." Wow. I can't even watch football for an hour, let alone 16 hours.
And when they say entire town, I saw kind of clips on the internet about like if I'll be down and boards, like the shop front's been boarded up and the whole lot.
Wow. So a historic football game played since the 1100s has returned to the north of England this Shrove Tuesday. So the football match is played every Shrove Tuesday and Ash Wednesday. So if people don't understand those words, it's Pancake Day.
Pancake Day.
In Derbyshire. And basically it's I'm just going to try and scroll down because it's giving me a lot of facts and a lot of dates. So each game is played for 16 hours in total from 2 p.m. to 10 p.m. on Shrove Tuesday and Ash Wednesday. So on Shrove Tuesday, 2 till 10, there's a football game, and 2 till 10 on Ash Wednesday, there's a game. So the play starts in the town centre, and the ball is moved towards either goal 3 miles apart via a series of hugs. Not too different from a rugby scrum. Just rugby then, it's not football.
I didn't write it.
Kicking, carrying. You don't carry a football. This is not football.
Well, yeah, but you can also kick it. I mean, it's basically...
You can kick a rugby ball, doesn't make it football.
Basically, it's one ginormous scrum. It looks fun.
Andy's asked me to read this because he knows that I just think football. I don't personally
It takes over basically the entire town for 2 days a year. They have to board the entire place up.
Dedication.
It is massive amount of dedication. It's the sort of thing that you only really hear about happening in kind of very kind of random kind of Devonshire towns. And I was like, this actually looks...
Oh my goodness, look at this picture.
Not Devonshire.
Look at the crowd. So
it's huge. Absolutely.
There's a picture in the newspaper and it's over down a street and you've got the bunting. And it looks like, I don't know if anyone's seen on the news, like when it's been like the coronation or a big royal event and you see all the crowds of people in by the palace. It is like that.
So what I said is just basically a huge scrum in the middle of town with people kind of climbing over and kicking and...
Well, surely that's a health and safety hazard.
Okay, we live in Devon. This isn't in Devon, but we live in Devon. The home of the burning... things and
what's it called? Not Burning Man. The burning barrels, isn't it?
Yeah. That's what I was looking for.
The
Burning
barrels.
barrels.
Yeah, which is 5th of November.
Which is arguably a greater health and safety hazard.
Yeah, true. But I'm just saying, like, they need some crowd control. Where's the first aiders? I'm seeing a lot of men. Where are the women? We've just talked about International Women's Day. I'm seeing it's very male dominated. We do have a female football team that do quite well in the leagues. Just saying. Andy got me to read this one because he knows I'm not the biggest fan of football. I'm more of a rugby fan.
So anyway, have you ever had that moment when you lose the remote control?
All the time. I lose everything.
Okay, now, Mrs. Robinson, age 86, lost her TV remote into the mechanics of her armchair. Right? Now, she couldn't quite reach it.
So when you say the mechanics, are you talking about how the armchair works?
Literally kind of inside the armchair.
Yeah.
It sounds like it was potentially one of those like armchair with
with the recliner.
Reclined back. And the armchair itself sounds quite heavy.
Mm-hmm.
So, and to quote the website, Mrs. Robinson said, because it's very, very heavy, I thought what I need is a couple of young men who are sturdy and strong and can lift this heavy thing around.
I bet Mrs. Robinson thought that.
And I thought, where can I find strong young men? I thought the rugby club.
Nice.
And basically, longest story short, she made a phone call. The rugby club were like, all right then. And we sent a couple of rugby players over to basically move the armchair for Mrs. Robinson, fetch the remote control, and put the TV back on. Job done.
Oh,
that is actually a lovely kind of
Mrs. Robinson's
focus.
I think
story.
Mrs. Robinson
is a bit news twist.
Not being embarrassed to reach out for help over something so small, and she did it in such a way that I respect.
Indeed. So on that note, thank you for listening and or watching to What's for Tea. You can find us on your favourite podcast provider or on the YMCA Exeter YouTube page. Please feel free to subscribe and follow on those places.
Thanks, guys. Next time. Bye. Are you going to go lay down now?